Now that Divi 5 is out, the main difference between an amateur designer and a pro designer is going to be the ability to use the inbuilt Divi tools to design amazing looking websites. So in this case, I did a design of a card, and this card may look very straightforward, but it involves a lot of steps. And for the most part, I use what is known as nesting. Nesting is very, very powerful. And once you master this, you're going to be able to design this in an amazing way. And also this design is also fully responsive. Although I'm using these different layers here, it does not mean that I go in and manually adjust the sizes. So everything looks great on all devices. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to design something that looks like this in a very, very short time. So let's dive in and let's get started. So I'm going to start off with a brand new section here. So I'm going to delete what I have and start from scratch. So over here, we're going to go with 3 equal columns like that. And I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to do here, because there's a lot of nesting that's going to be happening. So we're going to need a first group like that, right? I click once, and then I'm also going to need another group inside the group. Now, this is where the nesting comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, in that second group that I've added, I'm going to need 2 bunches of text. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this, and now this is 2 groups of text. So as I'm looking at this, it is very difficult for me to see where the first group is and where the second is, right? This is where we need to start using this option here, which is called the layers. Okay, so now when I select my groups, I can see there I have a group. And then when I click here, I can see that's my second group. So it's easier for me to target which group I want. So first of all, let's go to the first group, which is the outer one. So I want to select this. In fact, if you need to, we can just go in and label it. So why don't we do that? Okay. So we're going to call this outer group. Hit enter. And then for this one here, we're going to call this inner group. And then hit enter as well to commit to that. All right, great. So what I need to do now is to go to the outer group, and this is where I want to add my background image. So I'm going to come over here to background, come over here to the second tab, and then click on this plus button. So the first layout I'm going to go with is maybe for this lady here. Click upload image. Okay, so now it has been uploaded, but we can see right away that the size of this, or the height rather, is not really ideal for our design. So what we need to do is to come over here to design, sizing, and then we are going to set our height to, let's start off with, let's say 580 pixels. There we go. So it's nice and tall. So as I'm looking at this, I'm just going to get rid of this for now. I also need to make sure I'm working with a 12 column grid. Okay, so I'm going to select my row settings. Now, in order for me to work really fast, I use a design system. So I highly recommend that you create your own design system as well to help you design your websites fast. But if you want the design system that I'm using, I'll add a link to that in the video description below. All right, so I'm going to go into my row settings here, and then I'm going to make sure this is set to content row. Okay, so now you can see it's a bit wider. Now we're working with a 12 column grid. And while we're at that, I also need to reduce the gaps here. You see, this by default doesn't look great. And if I come over here to layout, you can see it's set to 5.5% and 40 pixels. No, we don't want that. Our design system is going to allow us to go in and add a specific size. In this case, I'm going to go with medium, and I think that's going to work great for us. Okay, and by the way, these values here are fully responsive. All right, so back onto our design here. Let's make sure that our layers here is turned on, because it's going to make it easier for us to see what we're doing. So with the outer one selected, I'm going to also go in and add some padding around my design. So I'm going to come over here to spacing. And again, I'm going to use my presets. I'm going to go with medium, or maybe even large. Okay, so now I've added my padding. And while I'm here, I'm also going to add my border, and it's going to be large. Okay, so now we have a large border. So far, so good. So you can see here, I'm still on the large, on the outer group. The next thing I need to do now is to just go in quickly and add my name in here. So I'm going to go into the text. So maybe this could be Lee. So I'm just making up these names, by the way. Okay. And while I have that selected, I'm going to come over here to design. And then on the top here, I'm going to set this to sub headline. I can use text extra large if I need to, or I can use sub headline. Okay, but sub headline is better because it's going to come in a bit bold already out of the box, which is fantastic. So the next thing I want to do now is to change the color. So I'm going to hover over text, click here, and then say light text. That's all I need to do. Next, I'm going to come over here because I need to change this description text. So I'm going to go to content, and we're just going to add a description text like that. And I can already see that the text is way too small. So I'm going to come over here and set this to my body text, the base. Okay. And then finally, I need to make sure that this text is white because we have a dark background to increase our contrast. So I'm going to come hover over text, set this to text light. Now, do you see how fast I'm working through this? The design system really helps me to achieve this. All right, so now that I have this so far, I'm going to go into the second group, which is the inner group, and you can see the inner group here has these two groups of text. So what I want to do is to reduce the space between these two. So to achieve that, again, I'm going to come to my design system here, okay, and then set this to small. Okay, I can even go extra small if I really want it nice and tight. And I think that's going to work much better. All right. So we want this text here, this second group here that I'm hovering on, to be on the bottom, right? We want it all the way on the bottom. So to achieve that, you need to go to the outer, okay? You need to go to the outer group, and then you want to go to your layout, okay? So you can see here, it's all the way at the top. This one here brings it to the middle, but we want it all the way to the bottom. So we're going to click on end. Okay. So far everything is really coming together now. So the next thing we need to do is to add another group. Believe it or not, we need another group inside this group, right? So making sure we have inner selected, I am going to right click. Okay. And then I'm going to say add elements. And the element needs to be below. So I'm going to come over here, choose add element below. And the element is going to be a group. Okay, great. So now that we have the element as a group, what we're going to need is an icon to start off with. So I'm going to search for my icon module. All right. So there's my icon. So with the icon selected, in fact, I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to call this bottom group. Okay. And hit enter. So in this bottom group, I only have my icon here. You see that? The next thing we need to do is to right click on the icon and add an element inside. And this is going to be a text elements. I'm going to go ahead and select it. So what I've done here, I don't know if you've noticed this. I have gone in and nested the icon and the text. Let me see if that worked. Sometimes it doesn't work. Yes, it has worked. So you see here, I've got icon selected, but I also have the text inside the icon. So we've got the icon and the text. So if I were to select these two, right, the icon and the text, I can also use Flexbox over here. So I'm going to go in because I want these side by side, by the way. So I'm going to go in, change my direction. Now, this is probably something that Divi needs to update on. By default, it just comes in like this. But if you do that and reset it, you can see now it goes side by side. Okay, great. So what we need to do now is to fix our sizes for our icon. So I am going to go into the icon size here. So first of all, I want to add our size from our design system. So I need an icon small. And that icon also needs to change because I need an icon of, let's say, people or person. Okay, I think it's person. So let's go with person. And I have a few options here. So I'm going to go with this one here. Okay, so now you can see it's nice and small. But what I also need to do is on this text, and we're going to come over here and target it. I need to add a value on the text here. So let's say 678, for example. And then on the top here, we're going to set this to our body text base. And we need to change the color. So I'm going to come over here to my text, change the color to light. All right, so we're moving really fast and this is really cool. But now we want this even closer together. So we're going to use our design system as well. So I'm going to come over here and reduce the gap to small. Now, did you see what happened there? This didn't work. Okay, that's because I'm on the text. So I need to go into the icon. Okay, and then let's try this one more time. I'm gonna come over here, set this to small. So do you see the text there went closer to my icon? If you want it even closer, you can go in and set this to extra small. But you know what? I think small is fine. Okay, so let's leave it at small. Fantastic. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that if you're a Divi user and you want to master how to use Divi, I have a course, and this course goes for $27. It is over here. It has over 1,268 students, and this course will teach you how Divi works. So as you can see, if you love my teaching style, as I'm teaching here, you're going to love this course. And I'm also going to be adding even more modules and more lessons at no extra cost. So once you purchase this at $27, there won't be any extra charges, and you need to get this now because the price is going to increase very soon, because I'm going to be adding a lot more lessons. So if you get it at $27, I will not charge you any extra. And also for those of you that want to use a design system to design in Divi 5, I have a dedicated group here, a dedicated community of designers that use my design system. And as you can see here, there's over 1,000 students. So we have a dedicated community, and I also have a course that goes on with that as well. So links to both of that will be in the video description below. All right, so what I need to do now, so you can see I have my icon. So below this icon, all right, below this icon, or rather in this bottom group, I need to add one more element, which is going to be our button. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to right click on my icon and then say add element below, and it needs to be a button. So I'm going to select my button here, so you can see my button is now below. So using my bottom group, I want to select that, come over here to design layout. Now we need our flex box to make sure these are side by side. So we're going to do that. You see that? Fantastic. So the next thing now is to make sure that it's centered, right? And then we want to make sure that these are separated and they are pretty much side by side. So to achieve that, I want to come over here and add space between, and there we go. So we can see our button here has not been stylized. So I'm going to select the button, and then back over here on the content, I'm going to go in and just say follow, and then I'm just going to add a plus to it. But this is a default button. We don't want that. So I'm going to come over here to my design system and choose the button primary small. Look at that. Now my design has really come together. The next thing I'm going to do is to head over to my inner group, right? So in this inner group now, I can choose to add another style, which is the glass effect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. All right, over here on the top, I'm going to choose glass effect. You see that? And then over here on the design, I'm going to go into spacing and set my spacing to medium. Okay. Now with medium sets, I need to remove the border. So I'm going to come over here. In fact, I need to go into the actual border itself. So by default, it's set to 0. I need to reset it like that. The next thing I'm going to do now, using our design system, I'm going to go in and set my radius to medium. So now we have our design and it is looking good. So if we want this bottom group here inside the inner group, well, we need to drag and drop it and let go. You see that? Or you can use the layers as well over here. So the final thing I'm going to do to this design is to select this inner group and add my spacing. So this time I'm going to add margin top large. Okay. So now our spacing is perfect and everything is looking great. So with this now, I can always duplicate it. And with that, I can now go in and change the background image. So I'll come over here. Oops, I want to go to the background. And in the background here, I can then update my image, change it, change the name, change everything. And pretty much I have a final design. So as you can see, this is a really powerful way of designing. And once you start designing layouts that look like this, it's really going to bridge a gap between your professional approach, and also this design is fluid and responsive. So the spaces here are going to all adjust based on screen size. So everything is fluid, and this is the correct way of designing in Divi 5. If you master this style that I've just shown you of nesting, you're going to be ahead of the game. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments box below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.